It started the way most love stories do, simple, effortless, and warm. Adam and I met in college, drawn to each other by mutual wit and a shared love of obscure novels. What began as flirtation became foundation, and by our late 20s, we were married. Life felt like a steady rhythm. Mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles, evenings with wine and shared playlists. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. Or so I believed. Adam was the quiet kind, thoughtful without show. He remembered anniversaries, left notes in my lunch, rubbed my back when I had a long day. I was the talker, the storyteller, the one who made him laugh even when he didn't want to. Our roles were natural. We complemented each other. Our friends said we made marriage look easy. And for a while it was. We traveled when we could, even if just for weekend drives. We didn't have children, but we had dreams. Conversations about future homes, possible cities, what we'd name a dog if we ever got one. Every time he looked at me, I saw safety. Every time I looked at him, I saw home. I still remember our 5th anniversary. He surprised me with a book I'd casually mentioned months before. Not expensive, not flashy, just deeply thoughtful. That was him, attentive, generous with his heart. I'd never known loyalty like his. Of course, not everything was perfect. We had disagreements like any couple. He worked long hours. I traveled often for my job. Sometimes, we'd go days barely speaking except in passing. But I never saw it as distance. I saw it as life. I believed love didn't need constant reassurance when trust was already cemented. I didn't realize how thin that cement had grown. Looking back, I see moments I overlooked. He once asked me why I laughed so easily with others but not with him anymore. I shrugged it off. I thought it was a joke. I didn't ask what he really meant. He always seemed steady, so I never questioned the weight he might have been silently carrying. I assumed love would hold, even when stretched. That assumption was my first mistake. I'd always believed we were immune to the kind of drama that ruined other couples. Infidelity was something other people did. Not us. Not me. The idea of betrayal never sat in our space, not in the way people think of it. But now, I realize betrayal doesn't always arrive with lipstick stains or hotel keys. Sometimes it's quieter, disguised as laughter, wrapped in something you don't recognize until it's too late. And even then, I had no idea that one offhand comment would change everything. That a laugh meant for nothing would echo into something we couldn't come back from. That a single moment, just one, could split a life in two. It was an ordinary evening. A casual get-together with a few close friends, wine flowing, conversations bouncing from work to relationships to harmless gossip. I was relaxed, maybe a little too relaxed. Someone joked about secrets couples keep, and without thinking, I laughed and said, if I ever cheated, Adam would never know. It was meant to be funny, flippant, just another line to keep the room entertained. People laughed. I laughed. And then I moved on. What I didn't know was that Adam had come home early. He was in the hallway, close enough to hear. I didn't see him until later, his face blank, unreadable. He said nothing that night. Just a kiss on the forehead and a quiet goodnight. It didn't register then. But the shift began immediately. The next morning, the silence was louder. He didn't make coffee like usual. No casual questions about my day. When I spoke, he responded in half sentences. Asked if something was wrong. He said he was just tired. But tired didn't explain how he stopped touching me, how his eyes started looking through me instead of at me. I kept telling myself it was work stress. 3 days later, while I was folding laundry, he asked the question. Not angrily, not loudly, just directly. Did you mean what you said the other night? I blinked, unsure what he was talking about. He clarified. The joke. About cheating. Would I really not know? I laughed it off, said it was just a stupid thing I said. But he didn't laugh. He just looked at me with this kind of quiet devastation that caught me completely off guard. I told him I was joking, nothing more. But he didn't accept that. He said, you don't joke like that unless part of you believes it. I started to feel defensive. I told him he was overreacting, that everyone says dumb things around friends. He asked if there was someone else. I said no. And I meant it. But he didn't believe me. That night, we didn't sleep in the same bed. He stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling. I lay in bed, wide awake, wondering how something so trivial had become something so heavy. But it didn't feel trivial to him. Not at all. In the days that followed, he stopped talking unless necessary. The silence became a third presence in the house. Meals were quiet. Even the air felt different. I kept trying to fix it, to joke again, to explain. But nothing landed. It was like he had already begun detaching. One evening, he said something I'll never forget. "When you made that joke, I realized I don't really know who you are when I'm not around." It crushed me, because beneath the sarcasm, I saw truth. He wasn't angry. He was hurt. Deeply. And that's what made it worse. Anger would have been easier. But hurt meant something had broken. And I had no idea how to put it back together. I kept telling myself he was overreacting. That one joke, no matter how poorly timed or phrased, couldn't possibly carry the weight he was giving it. But in the silence that followed, I started questioning things I hadn't allowed myself to examine before. And that's when I had to face it. While I hadn't physically cheated, I hadn't been innocent either. There was someone at work, Daniel. It started innocently. Quick chats over coffee, shared jokes in meetings, late-night messages about deadlines that turned into personal conversations. I never thought of it as anything more than harmless companionship. But looking back, I knew I crossed a line. I had looked forward to his messages more than I should have. I'd chosen to tell him things I hadn't told Adam. When I felt stressed or unseen, I went to Daniel instead of my husband. And maybe, in some way, that joke I made wasn't just a joke. It was a slip, a buried truth I didn't want to admit even to myself. I never touched him. I never kissed him. But I emotionally wandered. I let someone else into a space that should have belonged to Adam. And when I realized that, I couldn't unsee it. When I finally told Adam about Daniel, his expression didn't change much. But I could see something behind his eyes disappear. I told him I didn't mean for it to happen, that I hadn't realized how far I'd let it go. I said I didn't love Daniel. He just asked, "Then why did you need him at all?" That question hit harder than any accusation. I didn't have an answer that would make sense to him, or even to myself. I told him I'd never meant to betray him. But that wasn't enough. He said, "You didn't need to sleep with him. You already left me a long time ago, and I didn't even notice." I wanted to believe we could come back from it. We tried talking. We went to a counselor. We spent hours in the same room trying to rebuild something invisible. But Adam had shut something off. He said he didn't know if he could ever feel safe with me again. He didn't yell. He didn't blame. That hurt more than rage ever could. I realized I had expected forgiveness without fully owning what I'd done. Not the joke, that was the spark, but the slow erosion of intimacy, the quiet withdrawal I had convinced myself didn't matter. I thought loyalty was just about what you do with your body. But it's also about what you give with your mind, your words, your attention. The hardest part was watching him go through grief while still being there. His silence wasn't a punishment, it was pain. And I had caused it. I had treated emotional lines like they were gray, when they were never meant to be. I thought I was still loyal. But I wasn't. Not in the ways that count. He didn't leave right away. That made it worse. He stayed, quiet and distant, moving through the house like a ghost. No shouting, no dramatic exits, just the unbearable presence of someone already gone in every way except physically. We spoke less each day. When we did, it was polite. Cold. I kept trying to find moments to remind him of us, but they landed flat. He had already detached from the version of me he trusted, and no matter how I tried to rebuild it, it didn't change the fact that he no longer saw me the same. The night he left, he packed in silence. No last-minute pleas, no anger, no tearful confessions. Just a bag, a key on the counter, and one final sentence. "I don't hate you, but I can't stay where I don't feel safe." That broke me. Because I realized then that the love was still there, buried beneath hurt, but love alone wasn't enough anymore. Not after the doubt. Not after the erosion of trust one had caused. In the days after, The silence in the house became unbearable. I thought I'd feel relief at finally knowing where we stood, but all I felt was grief. I moved through the same routines, made coffee for one, opened a book I couldn't concentrate on, stared at his empty chair longer than I should have. People asked what happened. I didn't have a simple answer, because it wasn't one moment, not really. It was everything that built up behind that joke, everything I ignored, everything I didn't say out loud. I began therapy. Not for reconciliation. I knew that was gone, but for understanding. I needed to face how I'd let emotional distance feel harmless. How I confused validation with connection. How I let someone else in because I wasn't honest about my own discontent. I stopped blaming the joke. It had only revealed what was already broken. It was just the crack that exposed the hollow parts we'd both stopped looking at. There were no dramatic apologies from me, no grand gestures to win him back. I knew better. I knew he had given me his best, and I had mishandled it, not maliciously, not with intent, but with carelessness. I had taken his trust for granted, assuming it was unshakable. Months passed. I still think of him when I pass our favorite bookstore or hear a song we used to play on Sunday mornings. I wonder if he's found peace, if he laughs with someone else now. I hope he does. He deserves that. As for me, I carry the lesson every day that betrayal doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. In choices we justify, in boundaries we blur, in jokes we don't mean but speak anyway. One careless joke didn't end my marriage, but it opened the door to everything I hadn't faced, and once the truth came in, he walked out. And I understand why.